Welcome back. So, in the last lecture, we said once you have two critical pieces of information, one is the customer expectation of the target schedule, and the second is what are the at least the top level requirements of your product. Once you have these two, you're going to put them together, and now you're ready to develop a product development plan. So let's take a closer look at that process and see what are the ins and outs in terms of what you need to be watching out for right from the get-go. And so what we said in way back when is that the development plan is something that you need to show when you go to the product funding presentation to get the approval from the NPRB. So obviously that means that you need to make that ready, and you need to at least have a top level, almost 90% agreement with the engineering team. And so to make a plan for the entire product development is obviously a team effort. You as a product manager and the engineering manager are going to work together and come up with a plan. But at the same time, let's look at how that process can easily go wrong, and then it leads to a lot of heartache and so forth. And so I'm showing you a chart here, basically a graphic that that shows what normally happens in a typical company. And if you are a beginning product manager, this is more likely to happen. And what happens is you, the product manager, what you're going to do is you're going to pull together all these requirements, and then you're going to put them into a document, and then you're going to call or talk to the core development team manager, and you're going to tell her that, okay, here are the requirements, and this is what customer is expecting. Customer expected date is, whatever that date, end of January, December, whatever it is. And then you say that what this engineering manager is going to do is going to take a look at your product requirements, and her first instinct and her first responsibility is to look at how much time it takes to scope out each of the requirements, and then she's going to look at whether she can fit in the should have requirements and nice to have, but she's obviously first going to start with the must have requirements, and then she'll try to hit the target, and you're probably going to get back from her a schedule that sort of looks like this. She will assume a start date, and then she will phase out as she sees fit various tasks and phases of product development, and she'll try to make sure that it covers most of your must-have requirements, if not all. And then she will say, okay, here you said to me that here is the customer expected date, and I'm pretty much lining up to what you told me as the customer expected date, and then she will say, well, this is already a pretty tight schedule, and so that means there's a hint to you that don't think about adding any more requirements, okay? And so that's how the typical process goes. And then I want to say, okay, stop here. And I will say this: you have already made a wrong turn. And you're going to, if you proceed like this, you're going to make your life and your engineering manager's life and everybody else's life a lot more difficult. And you made a key error. So I'm going to tell you what the error is. So in the next chart, I'm showing you a picture. Basically, what you did, the error you made is you looked at the core development team, and then you considered, obviously for reasons that are very well known, core development is core development, and you considered and you made a mistake into thinking that core development team is all that matters for the most part in developing the product and also developing the development plan. And so what you did is you ignored everything else that needs to happen before the product is ready to be put in customers' hands. Once the core development finishes their job, if there is no other teams, there are no other teams that needs to contribute to the product. Then there is at least the final QA and testing, and there has to be some field testing that needs to happen. And then after all that is done, and when QA team blesses the product, it will be officially handed over to the product management team. And then product management team will put it through a set of steps called product release process. And we will talk about that in a separate lecture. And then, once that product release process, in a nutshell, what that release process does is it makes sure all the every component of the product is ready, it's been tested, and there are some application notes that go with it. So pretty much puts together the entire package, and then hands it over to sales, or tells the sales that, look, now you can flag your customers that they should expect an update anytime, or if you want to hand over personally a product update to them, now the product is ready. So there is a whole host of things that happen before what you call product readiness is done. And even for an alpha early customer, there is some kind of a process that needs to be put in place. You just can't take a product can't take something that was developed within the core engineering team and then sort of lob it over to the customer side, no matter how important that customer is. And so that's the first error you made. As a result of that, what you did is you pretty much did not allocate any time at all for all these important tasks that need to be staged. And by that, what happens is you end up paying a penalty. You as a product manager, you end up paying a penalty. How? So what happens now? You have already set an expectation in the core engineering team manager. Obviously that can be reset, but the point is you've already set an expectation in her mind that she has a certain allocated time, and then she took a lot of time to go through your requirements and then set it up and stage them up and then beefed up her team and jazzed them up, and and so all that process is now has to be reset, because now she's facing the pressure of either compressing, or she doesn't have that much time as she thought she had before. And then you as a product manager, she thinks, well, she already had picked only the must-have requirements, so there's not much that you can skim down as far as the requirements. But still, there's going to be pressure on you as a product manager, and the question is from the engineering manager, well, there's only one way you can get to the schedule that you want, which is either cut down the number of features or number of requirements, or go get an extension from the customer, or why don't we just rush some of these, detailed QA steps that we would normally take. So what are you talking about? You're talking about watering down both the product and the quality of the product. And, and there you are, you had set some expectations or carried the expectations from the customer, that the product will be like this and it will be available at a certain time and so forth. And then now you're coming back, and then now you're facing a situation like this. And not a good start. Totally, this will lead to heartache on everybody's side, and you're going to make everybody unhappy, including yourself, and tensions will run high. And this is what happens if you take the first step itself as a wrong step, or an immature or unthought step. So how do you minimize such situation? First thing, as I said, you need to think from a whole product point of view. That means, make sure before you set your expectation as to what the target date is, you as a product manager, yes, core engineering team is important, but you need to think through everything else about the product, everything that we have seen before on the chart. So that's number one. And number two is that never take a customer expected date and then tell that to the one group of engineering team, and leave the expectation there that they have that much time. you've seen what just happened, right? And so there again, go back to what we have talked way back in the beginning, expectations management. You may need to at some point go back to the customer and reset their expectations also, but here at home within the company, you do need to make sure that, resetting expectation is a very tough thing to do. People don't want to change their mind and they feel they are cheated. But setting the right expectation in the beginning, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. So be very careful and do a thorough analysis or thinking through of what are the steps that typically as a whole product process in your company, or you have to think through when you want to release the product in the hands of sales and in the hands of customer. So that's one thing you need to do. And then obviously, so what I said is, number one is you want to set the customer expectation date in a correct way. And this is, most likely these will be rookie mistakes, but you'll be surprised how quickly this becomes a habit. And then how quickly this initial error or not putting the right foot forward is going to lead to so much friction between marketing and engineering that it's not healthy for the company as a whole. And so another thing is you can try this approach. And what I call this as a mix of both forward schedule and reverse schedule. And what I mean by reverse schedule, forward schedule is normal schedule that we all used to use, line up all the tasks and see, when you will get the final deliverable. The reverse schedule, what I'm talking about is you start from the end goal. And I'm showing the chart here. If you start from the end goal and say, look, customer expected date is this. And so now how long it takes to do the product release process, back up from there. And then you back up to the field testing, and then you back up to field QA, and then final QA, and then you back up to core development. So, and then you back up. So all the way you will have to back up all the way to when you need to make your requirements ready, because you need to give engineering some time to scope their effort. And so this backing up helps in, if you mix this reverse schedule with the forward schedule, it really helps to understand the parallelization of the tasks better, and it most important, it helps to understand if you start early, does it help, and does the engineering team need any more resource help or some consultants you need to hire. And so no one approach is going to be sufficient, but you need to mix both the forward and reverse schedules and have an open mind about how you want to cut this, and be ready to change customers' expectations and also ready to change engineering's expectations and your expectations. So, and this is basically a set of good practices that you want to get into right from the get-go as you get into product management role. And so what we want to do is stop here, and then I'll take up the next lecture. I'll try to summarize where we are, and then we'll take up the following lectures. Okay, we will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.